How many of you have ever hosted an event and someone didn't RSVP? Or someone did RSVP and then they didn't show? Or someone who didn't RSVP decided to come anyway? What a headache! Look at these invitations right here. Look, there's 119 people who are invited that have not responded to this party. This luncheon has 19 people invited. Nobody's responded. This event, nobody's RSVP'd for yet. It's in like 20 days. Oh my gosh. Megan, how are you going to know who's coming to your graduation party right now?
Leslie, I don't know what I'm gonna do. We might run out of pizza if people won't tell me if they're coming.
What a problem! People not RSVPing is one of the biggest problems in the entire world. Because of this, Megan and I decided that we were going to take a deeper look at this problem.
So our survey was able to get over 200 responses, and when people took our survey, they saw one of 3 different invitation types. The first one was our control group. So they saw a standard invitation that asked them to RSVP by a certain date. The second invitation type told recipients that if they did not RSVP by that date, the hostess would follow up with them and figure out whether or not they would be attending. And the third invitation type tried to make it more of a symmetric social dilemma by telling attendees that they may be entered into a prize drawing if they RSVP by a certain date. According to the logistic regression analysis conducted by our dear trusted friend, the invitation type had no statistically significant effect on the RSVP rate. Leslie and I were surprised by the number of responses we got to our survey, but we recognized that there are 2 limitations with the respondents that we were able to find. First, all the people that we were surveying seemed to be fairly sociable, meaning that they were willing to go take this survey on their own time voluntarily just to do us a favor, which means they're also more likely to be those kind people that want to RSVP to events. Second, our group of respondents was fairly homogeneous, meaning that the majority of respondents were between the ages of 18 and 25. The majority of them were female, and they also mostly associated with the southeast region of the United States.
So despite these minor flaws, we were still able to gain some really interesting insights. So one of them being that we were able to prove validity for our survey because there was a high correlation between those who engaged in RSVP'd in our fake scenario and those who also said that they RSVP regularly in real life. So knowing that people answered mostly truthfully the whole time gives us a little bit more validity in knowing that we had some really truthful answers.
Our first insight was that people feel most compelled to RSVP to invitations sent through the mail. This was surprising to us because, as you can see on the bar graph, there are many other ways that people could receive invitations. But this survey response actually helped support some of our other findings from the survey that showed that people do truly appreciate personal invitations and mailings seem personalized and important.
So for our second insight, we're going to go through some top reasons why people said they don't RSVP.
Well, I mean, they invited like 400 people, which means it's not that personal of an invitation, and they probably won't even notice if I attend or not.
My plans are still completely up in the air. I only RSVP if I'm 100% going.
I mean, honestly, I don't want to commit to the event because what if better plans come up?
Well, I thought I would RSVP like later, but I totally forgot.
Do you know how many Facebook invites I have received in just this last week? I can't possibly attend all of them, so they can't be that meaningful.
I feel like I'm really gonna hurt the host's feelings if I do RSVP because I'm not coming and I don't want them to be offended that I'm not coming. Our third and final insight was that there were 2 main groups of non-RSVPers that we would like to shift their behavior. So looking at this chart, we see that over 50% of survey respondents are likely to RSVP regardless of the situation. Knowing this, we don't really need to analyze them. They're already doing the behavior that we want them to do. However, only about 10% of people that were responded do not RSVP if they're unsure of their plans. This one's a little difficult to intervene, so we're also going to cross through this one because the only solution would be to have a maybe box for people who are not sure, and that doesn't really help the host out at all. Another option we had was that a very small percentage of respondents believe the default RSVP option is that no RSVP assumes that they are attending. But because so few people said this, we're also going to cross that one off. So our problem remains here with that there was a default option of that if I RSVP, that means I am attending, and if I don't RSVP, that means I am not attending. Almost over 25% of people said that. The other option that was problematic for non-RSVPers was people who said, I only RSVP if I know the host plans to purchase food or beverages or gifts based on RSVPs. If they're not being provided at the event, I don't plan to utilize those things at the event, I feel no need to RSVP.
In response to the non-RSVPers that Leslie just discussed, we came up with 2 proposed interventions. The first is that we communicate with invitees that if they do not RSVP, we don't want to assume they aren't coming, so it really is important that they communicate either yes or no. And the second one is that head counts are not just used for food or beverages. Sometimes hostesses need to know that for event space or other logistical things.
So the next time that you are hosting an event, you can try all sorts of different techniques to increase your RSVP rate. The first one that you can try is the warm glow effect. Let people know that because they've RSVP'd, you really appreciate it. They've really helped make the event a great success. The second you can do is to challenge their system 2 thinking. And so you can ask them to, instead of just replying yes or no, you can ask them to give you a percentage likelihood that they will attend. The last thing that you can do is to try out the curse of knowledge, in which you will tell people what a stressful event it is if they don't RSVP.
Knowing all this information, we're curious, what are you most likely to change the next time you're invited to an event or the next time you're hosting an event?